Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are
The
the FAIRtax Guys, complete as usual with scrolling banner and Fat Albert.
the clothesline that ends all clotheslines.
Clothesline?
The FAIRtax banner, sort of. I don't know why it reminded me of a clothesline. You remember those that you had that had the roll on the tree and had the big, and you took the rope all the way out and tied it around another tree and instant close.
Yeah, I remember we had a clothesline strung between trees in the backyard when I was growing up. I mean, a long time ago.
Yeah,
But
that was back when you used air and air, the sun to instead of a clothes dryer all the time.
Today we'd call that a solar powered clothes dryer.
That's right.
But,
Yeah, that's right.
that would work pretty well.
Using wind power too, in some cases.
Yes, absolutely. So, do you know what today is?
Uh,
If I'm counting correctly, this episode is going to stream on fill in the blank.
April the 18th of April. Tax day.
Yes. Guess what would happen if we had the fair tax? Today would be just another lovely spring day that nobody would have to worry about.
That's
And
right.
nobody in the entire country would be scrambling to get their thing mailed on time, would be pulling their hair out trying to figure out all these complicated forms. All of this goes away. The entire income tax goes away with the fair tax. And today, April 18th, I don't know, I guess April 15th, of course, is the normal deadline. That fell on a Saturday.
Yep.
And for some reason, when that happens, they extend the deadline out to the following Tuesday, not the next Monday.
And because they've got to get back in the office and get ready for all the onslaught of the electronic filing.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, if this time next year you would like this to be just another lovely spring day, help us get on board with the fair tax. Of course, it's probably not going to happen by next year. It's probably going to take a couple of sessions to get through Congress, even though we are supposedly been promised a vote in this Congress.
Right.
And then we'll see, and then we'll probably have to have a change of administrations in order to get a president that would sign it if it gets through Congress. But anyhow, we're not going to give up on trying to get the income tax replaced by the fair tax. And so there.
That's right. And, the thing is that Congress is busy. This session, the first time in the history of the bill, H.R. 25, Congress is going to debate the fair tax on the floor of the House of Representatives. It's really monumental. And this is why right now everybody needs to be thinking about what is the fair tax and how can we get around the hurdles that there are there. And one of the reasons why we want to get rid of the income tax is what Congress does with the tax code, and that is
you're setting me up, aren't you?
Yes, that's Bob Paxton's cue to bring us another happy edition of Congress.gov.
I'm not sure that there's a happy edition of Congress.gov when you see what all the Congress critters are doing or trying to do to the tax code.
I get excited because it underscores what lunacy takes place in our nation's capital with people that we may even have contributed money to. At least before.
Actually, the Congress critters have slowed down a bit on introducing crazy things into the tax code. We got a few things to talk about here, including off the top of the bat is H.R. 2450. And none of these things have any text in them, so I have nothing beyond just the description that's published here at Congress.gov. And it says H.R. 2450 is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to establish a refundable credit for commercial truck drivers, which seems all well and good. Commercial truck drivers are certainly essential to getting products and services distributed throughout the economy and get them to the store where you can buy things. But, why pick winners? Why give tax breaks just to certain people? That's one of the things the tax code does all the time. It'll give this group a tax break. It'll give this group a tax break. It'll take something away from somebody else. Why don't we just let everybody be treated the same? And the fair tax does that. The income tax doesn't.
That's right. And the bottom line is tax fairness. That's why they call it the fair tax.
Hmm. Well, no, make no mistake here. I'm not saying anything bad about commercial truck drivers.
No, no.
My wife's brother is one of them, and a very good one, by the way. But you know, if one group gets a break, it's not fair that other groups don't. And so
Well,
that's what's great about the fair tax. It treats everybody the same way, and you don't have stuff like this in the tax code with the fair tax. All
it,
right, let's.
it's an entangled mess. It looks like somebody dropped a plate of spaghetti on the floor.
Uh-huh. Okay, now here's another one that just kind of leaps off the page at you. HR 2448 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to, now get this, promote the increased use of renewable natural gas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful transportation related emissions that contribute to poor air quality and to increase job creation and economic opportunity throughout the United States. You've got to do all that through the tax code. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's what a great idea.
You know, I like the second part of it, to increase job creation and economic opportunity throughout the United States. If you want to do that, pass the fair tax.
Oh my goodness, rocket fuel. Somebody
Yes, this
said that recently, but we can talk about that later. But we,
this is from Representative Linda Sanchez in California.
yeah,
Rocket fuel, that is, a lot of people have described the fair tax as rocket fuel for the economy,
yeah,
including the latest member of the AFFT advisory board.
that's right.
That is Stephen Moore, well-known economist. If you watch any TV at all, you will see him. He talks to a lot of meaty people. But Steve Moore is now on board with the Americans for Fair Taxation Advisory Board, which
That and
is
that's a good thing. I mean, the advisory board is not the necessarily the governing board. They
the advisory board is not the governing board. The advisory board are, well-known people. Of course, Governor Huckabee, former Governor Huckabee, is the chair of the
yeah.
advisory board, and they've got some pretty heavy hitters there that hopefully can give the fair tax some more visibility and some more credibility in the eyes of the public. But yeah, Steve Moore should do it. He's a very well-known, very well-respected economist, and is now working in favor of the fair tax, which is cool. All
Yeah,
right, one more. One
yeah.
more here this week.
Go ahead and I'll propose something after you do that. See if we can get some people to do something for us. Some
Oh,
of our
okay.
and listeners, yeah. Some of our
Okay. Last one for this week in Congress.gov, HR 2406, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to permanently allow a tax deduction at the time an investment in qualified property is made, and your favorite phrase, for other purposes.
I tell you, it's just why do you use the tax code to do all that? It's just it's insane. It's
Well,
just
this one again illustrates the shifting sand nature of the tax code. This says to amend the Internal Revenue Code to permanently allow a tax deduction, because you'll get a tax deduction, then they'll take it away, then they'll modify it, then they'll give it back, then they'll take it away, and all right, they're going to try to make this permanent. Yeah, until another Congress decides to change it. But that's just the shifting sand nature of the tax code we've got now, because the Congress critters cannot resist messing with it because the lobbyists give them money to do it.
well, and it's individual. It might be one or two lines that only affects a company or an industry. As time goes on, you have multiple layers upon layers of minute descriptions of things that the tax code is going to help just a few people, or like I said, a company or an industry, and not anything to do with advancing anything that that helps the republic. And using the tax code is just is not an efficient way, in my opinion, of trying to get a bill moved forward. But obviously, it's something that works for our representatives in terms of currying favor with the lobbyists.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, real quick, what we do here, we put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search bar at the top of the Congress.gov page, hit the go button, and as of the day we're recording this, that search brings back 316 hits. So whatever that. Okay, I'm done. Let's hear your proposal.
My proposal is, and this is open for anyone out there who wants to go to Congress.gov and pick out one of their favorites, maybe from their district, that one of their elected officials has presented in Congress.gov that affects the tax code, and submit it to us.
So that makes sense. We'll let the folks out there listening do the same thing we do. Go through Congress.gov, seeing what the Congress critters are doing to the tax code, and just let us know what your favorite one is. I mean, I just pick them out at random not at random, but they just kind of catch my eye or catch my attention for some reason. So if something out there particularly catches your fancy and you'd like us to mention it here on the FAIRtax Power, do that.
We'll give you a shout out on the program. But at the same time, you might find one that the person from your district is putting up there.
Okay. So if you find one you'd like us to include in our Congress.gov weekly look at, write us at FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. Give us the bill number, either HR or S, whichever it is, and if you want to kind of explain why it strikes your fancy, we can go into that too if you'd like to help us out with this a little bit. All right, that's a good idea. Good job.
There you go. All right. Well, it's been a while since we've done what we're getting ready to do for the remainder of the show, and that is probably appropriate that we do this because there are a lot more people that are focused in on the fair tax, the tax on consumption. I believe it was right around last fall, last couple of months out of last year that we.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm old and my memory's failing.
And you're retired, so you don't need to worry about days, times, hours, or anything like that.
Yeah, they're all the same.
That's right. The only time he knows is dinner time.
Yeah, and bowling league day and church day, I know those, but and now my baseball schedule that I have to go do the announcing for every now and then. Okay,
I got a question, and what we're going to do, folks, is focus on, and you can follow along if you'd like, fairtax.org/FAQ, fairtax.org/FAQ. The frequently asked questions that people who want to know more about the fair tax as a replacement.
Yes,
the income.
As I say, this one's not in the FAQ per se, but the big question everybody, especially those who are just taking notice of the fair tax for the first time, what is it?
Yeah, well, it's a tax.
That's a question to you, my friend. Go.
It's a tax on consumption. Take, for example, the current system: 155 million tax filers against the fair tax, and the fair tax has, wait for it, 250 million plus taxpayers. That's U.S. adults and international travelers that are coming into the country on vacation or maybe even for business. Everybody goes to the cash register, they buy something, they pay the tax at that point. And it also includes people who are not necessarily doing good things in the community. They're not community individuals. They're out there with drugs, or they're selling prostitution, or they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or they're in the country illegally. And the challenge is they ain't paying a tax like we are, but switch to a tax on consumption where it's paid at the register. Everybody is going to be paying that tax.
Well, the key word there that you hit on is switch. The fair tax is not a new tax that's going to be levied on top of everything else you're already paying. It is a replacement for the federal income tax and all of the other stuff that comes with it, which means no more individual income tax, no more corporate income tax, no more capital gains tax, no more estate tax, death tax, gift taxes, stuff like that. Anything like that, all of those taxes and the federal payroll taxes that support Social Security and Medicare, they go away. And those are the most regressive taxes people pay. You hear all the time, oh, the fair tax is going to hurt the poor. No, you talk about taxes that hurt the poor, those federal payroll taxes that are collected from $1. There are no exemptions. It doesn't matter how much or how little you make. You're going to pay 7.65% of your salary in that kind of tax, and your employer is going to match that. And there are a lot of economists that say, well, actually, the whole 15% and change is paid by the employee, because if the employer didn't have to pay that matching part, then,
Right.
you could, that's a cost to the employer for having the employee. If they didn't have to pay that to the government, they could pay it to the employee.
All of us, it's an instant raise. And on the expense side of that, the withdrawal side of that, you're not getting the taxes taken out. So you've got a benefit on both ends. Now it would be up to the employer as to his good nature to provide you with your share of his payment for your tax that the federal government levies on him. And
so as we've noted, the fair tax would be rocket fuel for the economy, meaning
man,
that there would be a much higher demand for workforce. So now all these people are going to need to hire folks. And yeah, how do you hire folks? You offer somebody a better deal than the company down the street. Just the plain economic forces in a free market economy are going to work very well to the advantage of the workers under the fair tax, because I say the economy is going to be so much better and there'll be much more competition for labor.
That's right. An instant raise in your paycheck, because you won't be having the taxes taken out. And due to market competition, your employer or whoever your new boss is going to offer you maybe additional revenue, additional pay, because he's going to have that money that he's not paying to the government for your and folks ask a lot of questions, when it comes down to this, because there's a lot of muddy water out there right now about, it's 30% and it's going to be, and they don't, I think people are really digging in now, because it's been several months since the HR 25 was introduced on the floor of the House of Representatives back in January. And so now we're looking at, we have time to sit and look at exactly what the fair tax will do. And I hope that our listeners and folks that are viewing the video channels are considering these questions to make sure that not only do they understand it, but that they can go out and articulate it to folks in their community and some of their friends, neighbors, and coworkers.
Well, the number one thing that you need to know about the fair tax is that it replaces the income taxes. It is not a new tax that is charged on top of all the taxes that you currently pay. But here's a question we hear a lot, and this one is in the FAQ. Hey, what about a flat tax? Wouldn't that be better? And wouldn't that be easier to pass? Well, easier to pass, probably. Better, not so much.
Well, and my thing is, it sort of sounds the same. And again, a cursory look at the fair tax. The first thing you hear is flat tax, because it's the same number of letters. It starts with F, flat tax, fair tax, and people go, well, what's the difference? Well, Bob, tell us what the difference is.
Well, the difference is the difference between night and day. The flat tax, which there's another word that should be included in the description of the flat tax that nobody ever puts there. The flat tax is a flat income tax. And the fair tax is a consumption tax. A flat tax, as it's currently represented out there, is still a tax on what you earn. The fair tax is a tax on what you spend. Again, the fair tax changes the point at which you are taxed from when you make your money to when you spend your money. So with a fair tax, you've got more money in your pocket up front. Because as you mentioned earlier, with the withholding goes away, the payroll taxes go away, you bring home a much bigger paycheck with the fair tax. And of course, the flat tax, being a tax on income, still retains all of the really nasty, ugly stuff that we have to deal with on days like today, tax filing day.
Yeah.
There is still a tax filing day with the flat tax. You still have to file a tax return. You still have to keep records all year long to support the numbers that you put on your tax return. You still have to send your tax return to the IRS, which goes away under the fair tax, but remains in place under the flat tax. I mean, it's just a night and day difference. And yeah, it would probably be easier to pass because the Congress critters and the lobbyists would spend absolutely no time at all waiting to change that flat tax back into the mutt mess that we've got today.
There are people that benefit from status quo, and that's why you don't hear them talking about it too much. And the flat tax over the years has been generally supported by people who stand to benefit from the income tax structure, but are looking for something that will be perceived as giving some sort of relief. It's going to be simple. It's a postcard. All you have to do is stick a $800. No, all you have to do is stick a 50-cent stamp or whatever it is now, because I bought 100 of those Forever stamps a while back, and anymore I'm not paying to mail anything.
Yeah. If you owe the IRS money, how do you staple a check to a postcard? That probably will not make it through to its destination.
Right.
But anyway, the flat tax and the fair tax are night and day different. They really are.
It really is something. And the fair tax is simple, easy to understand. It's visible because you only pay the tax when you buy something.
And the flat tax would still have the same evasion problem that the current income tax has. So it's just
17, but only 2 pages instead of 100 and whatever many pages it is.
Yeah, don't be fooled into thinking that the flat tax will be better than what we've got now for a while, until it morphs right back into what we've got now, and we have to start all over again. Let's move on.
Future Congresses, I'll just say this, we'll move right along. Future Congresses could take the flat tax and add more stuff to it, because it's not getting rid of the Internal Revenue Service. And it could be, well, this particular economic situation that we're in right now requires us to tighten our belts, and we need more money in the coffers. So we're going to make it, instead of 15% or whatever it is, we're going to go to 18.2, and then we're going to add this. But these folks over here have been telling us that they need some, they need some help, and we're going to give them a credit for whatever it is that they're getting a credit for, and for other purposes.
All right. Let's move on here. You hear people all the time, oh, a sales tax or consumption tax hurts the poor. How does the fair tax protect low-income families from oppressive taxation?
Yeah, that's easy, because the poor folks working 2 jobs, one to pay for child care, the other one to pay the taxes and buy food. The poor people pay no net fair tax at all up to the poverty level. Matter of fact, nobody does. Every household receives a rebate that is equal to the fair tax paid on essential goods and services, which you get to decide what your essential goods and services are. There's nobody telling you what to buy with that prebate. Wage earners are no longer subject to the most regressive and burdensome tax of all, the payroll tax.
Yeah, we mentioned that.
Absolute sock in the jaw. Those spending at twice the poverty level pay a tax of only 11.5%, a rate much lower than the income and payroll tax burden that they bear today. And you talk to people that are like right now, with the way inflation is pushing this way, and fuel is, and everything costs a considerable amount more. I've seen chicken coops go for sale and gone off of the different, yard sale place in no time. I think if I took that to be my job, then I could make a mint off of making chicken coops. And the reason I bring that up is the price of eggs has gone through the roof. But folks are having to figure out, okay, I got to go to this job 4 days a week. I got to get enough gas in the car to do that. Gas is fluctuating. We're getting ready to go back into summer. The summer blends are getting ready to push the gas prices up even further than they are right now. and they've been fluctuating over the last few months, as most people have probably realized. We've gotten used to the gas prices where they are, but reality is we're still having to live inside that budget that we have. So here comes the second job, and maybe we have to get a third job to do that. The working poor is pressed even tighter. They may not have a big savings, foundation like some people do, or living off of, stock dividends and things like that, or a jar buried deep in the backyard somewhere with money in it. But they're the ones that have a considerable more amount to lose than most people do. But everybody, fixed income retirees, for example, low income families and individuals, if it's a single mom in the house and she's got 3 kids and she's got to work 2 jobs and she's not home, I mean, societal decay is the potential for that around what is going on that the fair tax could help solve. When somebody blows smoke and tells you, if you're listening out there, listen carefully to this. If somebody is telling you, well, the working poor, they're really going to get socked, and it goes back to the fair tax is something that happens not on top of an income tax. It is a replacement for. So benefits out into the stratosphere for everybody, but especially for those folks that are working 2 jobs, and maybe they could get to a point where they only needed to work 1 job and they could spend more time with their family.
Okay, Professor, we're just about out of time here, but we got time for one more question. Is it fair for rich people to get the same rebate on their taxes as poor people? Well, that's not a hard question.
Yeah, well, I had to find it on the page. That was the hard part.
Okay.
We're zipping through fairtax.org/FAQ, and you can join along with us as we look. Okay, so let's look at the billionaire under the fair tax, for example.
We got about a minute and a half here. We got to rip through here.
If he spends $10 million, if the billionaire spends $10 million and he pays a tax of $2.3 million and gets a prebate of $4,697, assuming married with no children, his effective tax rate as a percent of spending is 22.95%. Now, let's look at middle income married couple with no children under the fair tax. If they spend $50,000, they pay $6,803 net for their prebate for an effective tax rate of 11.6%. 11.6% effective tax rate. The effective tax rate increases as spending increases, but never exceeds 23%.
Yeah. So that's it. You give both the rich folks and the poor folks the same dollar amount in prebate, but it is vastly different in the impact that it has. I mean, the couple $1,000s that the rich guy would get would just be pocket change, and the prebate that a lower class working family would get would be a godsend and a lifesaver. And I'm afraid that's all the questions we got time to take today. We'll remind you again, okay, if you'd like to see, if you want to go to congress.gov and let us know what your favorite little tweak on the tax code is, we'd love to hear from you at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. And that is going to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing these videos, telling your family and friends about them. But until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So what do you need from me to get these taxes collected?
Glad you asked, because there is a fair amount of information you need to be aware of.
That's your tax plan?
Oh, no, this is just the revisions for this year's tax plan. What I need from you is you need to keep track of all of your income, as well as any taxes that you've already paid. Also, any gifts that you received or gifts you've given to churches or charities or individuals throughout the entire year. Do you do any side jobs?
Every now and again.
Great, because there's some more information about that right here. Everything you need to know right here. So just simply compile that, send it in to us. Be careful, make sure there's no mistakes. If we do find mistakes were made, we can fine you or, throw you in jail. So you might want to be aware of that.
And what do you need from me?
As an individual, nothing. As a business owner, or if you're doing side jobs, I mean, yes, you would have to collect taxes on that, but, well, it's all right here.
Can I get a copy of